Okay, so last week you took some time and you worked to kind of deconstruct the mark of your old masters. And in looking at the submissions that you all did, one of the things I noticed was that a lot of people took their old master drawing like this and by Raphael, and then they did a exact version of it to scale, basically on one of their sketchbook pages. And in seeing that that is what you all did, I realized that I had not articulated exactly what I had wanted you all to do. So today, what I'd like you to do is to do the same idea where you are deconstructing the artist's mark, but I want you to zoom in. So what I've got here is a close-up of this section of the arm. And I've got a close-up of this section. This one here is actually a section, this little section right here. And then I've got a section here. And you can pick any part of the drawing. Ultimately, you want to pick parts of the drawings that have details that, in your mind, contain the secrets to that particular old master's mark. And on the assignment, I'm going to put some more additional examples of student artwork where you can see how they kind of work through the process. So we're going to call this deconstructing the artist's mark close-up. Because the idea here is that you zoom way in on the mark, and then you try to see those marks. So I'm going to try to take, instead of recreating this, I'm just going to recreate this little guy. And you can zoom in on your computer however you like. This drawing by Raphael was done with Conte. And so I'm going to come in here and I'm not going to worry about drawing the square or any of that. I'm just trying to get a sense with this Conte, like how did they create this mark? So you've got the contour that comes in here, and then over here there's the shading. I will say this works much better if you have a color picture to work from. I'm getting a little sense of that, and then I'm sensing that most of this is done. Oopsie. Again, this is where the practice comes in. This is also, besides deconstructing it and trying to understand it, it's an opportunity to practice these marks. So as I'm looking at this, it feels to me like this area here might have been done by using the side of my Conte, kind of create an even tone. Over here, we've got, again, a pretty strong, might even be drawn with like the end here, a little bit thicker mark for the under part of the arm. And then there's what looks like cross contour kind of hatching going on. And then some really bit of heavier mark making. This line that comes in here. And again, ultimately, the goal is to really try to see, he has that change in line quality that's right here. I don't want to try to get it, I don't know that I got it on the first whack. But with Raphael, we do know that he used a lot of cross contour kind of hatching that, again, I don't feel like I'm really capturing in my first whack at this. I can see there's some really light hatching that takes place up in here. Trying to kind of create that. I think one of the hardest things to get is the intensity and the strength of the line, because like this line is much darker than that line. So I'm going to try to go back in here a little bit more. But see, this line is not as dark as that line. So it's kind of this fine line of how this is created. really trying to get a feel for the line. You know, again, Raphael, I will say, his lines are remarkably parallel. Part of that probably is because it was a smaller drawing than what I'm trying to do it much larger. I've got some cross-hatching lines in here that are coming in. This definitely needs to be darker. Come down here, across here. This is all got a lot of pretty heavy shading. But again, it's heavy, but it's light, and that's what I'm not achieving. But I am paying close attention to the curve of the mark as best I can. Okay. All right, and then there's some additional hatching that starts to happen down here in this corner. All right, so not a huge success, but again, I'm not going to beat myself up over that. I'm going to switch to another picture and take a different approach. I'm going to set this here, and I want to actually try out on some of my scrap paper that I have. And again, in the tearing down of your paper, you might have ended up with a little scrap paper. You might have a bigger scrap paper. And this is really helpful because then when you're actually testing out, don't need that. When you're testing out your mark, you're going to really get a sense of how it performs, you know, on that paper versus the really smooth paper that would be, you know, in a sketchbook or something like that, you know, because the beautiful like side mark is going to handle, it's going to look very different. Here, I'll show you, in case you don't believe me. You can see here, just by turning on its side, because this paper has more tooth, it's going to behave much more differently than the smooth paper. So, you know, that's where, again, we want to pay close attention to our media, our surface, and, you know, also the mark. All right, so let's see if I can recreate this guy. Take another whack at this. So, again, I've got a contour line I'm going to start with. And you, if you care to, you could actually sketch this out with pencil lightly, just so you have some guidelines. But again, it's really more about like how clean is the line. These lines are really clean. I will say too, as you're doing this, it's very easy to get frustrated, but I don't want you to get frustrated by the process too much. And you have to be patient with yourself as you're kind of working out how the heck these guys and gals made their work, because it really does just take a lot of practice. This is still a very, can you guys see okay? Okay. There's some cross contours that's happening, very, very light. So I'm going to practice kind of laying in some light strokes. Got some other little marks down here that are very light. Kind of follow the contours of the hand. I think that's the hand. Yeah, that's the hand in here. And then here it kind of transitions into this shadowy area. It probably was built up with some hatching. Here the hatching is pretty straightforward. Pay close attention to the negative space. This is a great opportunity to work on that. As you get more comfortable with how your artist works, what I hope is that you'll look less at the specific lines and really start to just pay attention to, like, for example, I drew those lines. These lines are much more curved. So I really want to try to get that sense of the curve that Raphael used. Yeah, still have to get a handle on the lightness. They're also closer together. Sometimes you can see where he would work back in over top of something. And probably turning the edge, maybe not. The key here, just like when you're doing observational drawing, try not to make stuff up. Try to really look and see what's happening. And over the course of doing a lot of these practice drawings, see again the angle, these lines are very evenly spaced, and I'm doing a very poor job of evenly spacing them out. There's a kind of an immediacy to them and a precision that is, again, why Raphael is Raphael. And then they get lighter as they go up, so I'm going to start. Also get a little bit of a curve as you go along here. Okay, so I'm getting some sense, perhaps, of what's happening. Still have a little bit more to do to kind of really work out some of the kinks before you tackle it on your final version of the paper, which I would probably, realistically, we'll try to start that on Wednesday. So give yourself the rest of the class really just to dive in and get a handle on these drawings. Okay, thanks everybody.